G'day folks, welcome to this unboxing of Voidfall. This is a 2023 design by Nigel Buckle and David Tersey with art by Ian O'Toole, and it was published by Mindclash Games and a couple of other companies in 2023. Now, David Tersey is a fairly prolific game designer, famous for his solo modes, such as Excavation Earth, Tekenu, Knights of Fire, I think it's called. Nigel Buckle also collaborated with David on Imperium Legends. And of course, Ian O'Toole, the artist here, he has done a lot of work, perhaps most famously alongside Vital Lacerda, where what I really love is the iconography that he brings to his art. He's good at using iconography to communicate kind of complex interactions and ideas between components, which is prevalent throughout those Vital Lacerda designs. And I think it may have been the Ian O'Toole art that drew me to this title. So this was a Kickstarter from not too long ago, maybe only 12, 18, 24 months ago. There were various versions of this game available. There was, this is the standard version, which was €75. For about €139, you could buy the miniatures version, which came with ship miniatures. I didn't go with that option. I decided to save 50 or whatever euros to just go with the base version because I like this. It looks simple enough and clear. Okay, so what is this game? It is a space-themed 4X. You spread out into space, you explore, exploit, what do the other X's stand for? Engage in conflict, etc. Here we go. Epic space strategy with 4X elements, 45 minutes per player, 1 to 4 players. Apparently a very good solo mode driven by David. 20 scenarios with 52 map setups and 52 asymmetric playable factions. It is a very heavy box. It is fairly big. Let's crack it open. I can tell you immediately, really solid and robust box design. You're going to need it because it's a big hefty box. Now this is a 4X game, and space 4Xs usually involve sort of buckets of dice. I'm thinking Twilight Imperium, Space Empires 4X, what else? Twilight Imperium, Eclipse, things like that, where there's a lot of combat and you're rolling dice to attack and so forth. This takes that kind of theme, this 4X theme, but it uses a Eurogame kind of mechanical engine as its foundation. With the result that combat is deterministic. I think it is a 0 random factor. I don't think there are any dice in this. It's I think you know the outcome of combat before you do it. Your turn revolves around, so there's a companion app for it. Your turn revolves around selecting, I think it's 1 of 8 actions, and performing those actions and building up your engine. So you'll be collecting resources, you'll be spending those resources by using these various actions. Similar in a sense to, I guess, games like Scythe, where you're picking an action and trying to build up your engine through those careful timing and selection of those actions. It's not just like Eclipse, where you're building up an army, technology, and going out and conquering. It's like, okay, you've got to think about how you're doing the mechanics behind all this. Here is some of Ian O'Toole's iconography. Not much of it makes sense to me at the moment. There are sort of production resources. You've got food, energy, materials, science, and credits, and some wilds, which I've seen already on a lot of the preview art. Here are the various fleets that you'll encounter. There are installations, there are guilds. Wow, there are a lot of icons. it all looks really confusing at the start. I have no idea what any of these mean. I know corruption is an important theme, but none of this kind of really makes sense. But I'm confident, having played a lot of Ian O'Toole games in terms of his art, that I'm confident that a lot of this will become very intuitive very quickly. He's great. It always looks intimidating when you first open the box, but it always clicks quite quickly. I've seen the beta version of the rulebook. This is the final version of the rulebook. It is, I think beta was 28 pages. This is 38 pages, 39 pages with credits. So they've kind of pushed it out. There are better illustrations in this version, all the components that you get with it. So let's kind of have a look at the summary of what we're looking at here. We have really nice looking resource boards. Haven't even got to them yet, and already I'm excited by these images with these dials. Galactic board, house mats. So there are 14 faction house mats to create asymmetrical sort of player houses with unique abilities. Lots of population dice. So these seem to be trackers rather than randomizers, I believe. Flipping over, we have 30 sector tiles, which again look great just from what I've seen on the pictures. These are the fleet tokens, which we'll see in a moment instead of the actual miniatures. In fact, you can already see some of these here. They are double layered, okay, so you can put cubes on top of these. Lots of tokens. There are hundreds of tokens, hundreds of cards, the agenda board, crisis board, crisis cards, alert cards. I don't know much about what these do. Safe haven tiles, various other little components as well. There's a summary on how to use the booklets, how to play tutorials. There's solo mode as well, so your first game in tutorial scenario. Apparently it's a good game to learn solo. Summary of the cycle of play, preparation, focus, evaluation, and then details on how that all works. Really nice color-coded rules for the various game modes that the rules apply to. I'm not going to go through this in detail, just kind of summarize and highlight what it looks like. Nicely illustrated throughout. Apparently it's quite a heavyweight game. So I think it's around a 4.5 out of 5 on the Board Game Geek complexity rating. But from what I've told, from what I've read, it's a complex game to learn that flows very smoothly once you understand it. All right, so here's the combat summary, civilization tracks and tiers, etc. Corruption, trade, technologies here, improving your ships, etc. Agendas, preferred focuses, peaking at galactic events, skirmishes, and fleet types. And a summary there. And there we are. Now in the beta book, So in the beta rulebook, I think that also included the scenarios. This is the full rulebook without scenarios. This is now the detailed description of game components. Wow, so this summarizes, okay, this is like an appendix. Summarizes all the cards that come with the game, all the civilization tracks, sector tiles, alerts. So that's kind of available for consultation if you want clarity on any of the things that happen over the course of the game. I'll throw that up there. This is a spiral-bound compendium used together with the rulebook, game setup, scenarios, tutorial, and the world of Voidfall. Wow, this is really a step up from the beta. It's just a summary of all the different context to the game. Now we have the game set up, the map. Okay, scenario set up. Wow, it's quite a detailed. Then your individual house setup. There's a lot of setup just to set up this game. 22 pages before we get to the tutorial. Okay, so this is the tutorial. We have a table of scenarios summarizing their varying levels of complexity. So solo scenarios here, cooperative scenarios, competitive scenarios, a lot of depth in this game. And apparently from what I've read, replayability within each of these scenarios. So just provide different settings for you. And each game can play out differently. So the setups, the scenarios are fairly, one-page summary, 2 safe havens, a board setup, and they all kind of look like that. These are the larger ones, slightly more complex. Okay, if I can skip towards the end of the book, these are the competitive scenarios. So really different map setups, which is really interesting because whenever you play a game of Twilight Imperium, and we've played quite a bit of, I love Twilight Imperium. We're up to the 4th edition now, of course. You know, you've almost there's a bit of randomization of the planets, but it's always that kind of grid. This really looks quite different. You've got a lot of diversity of the layouts here of, I guess, the galaxy you're fighting over. And that's, yeah, as I said, spiral bound with a semi-hard cover as well. All right, now I don't exactly know what the term for this is. Iconography everywhere, confusing at first, but I am confident I will, you know, you'll grasp that pretty quick. These are quite clearly the house cards. So let's just try and get a sense of how they're different. I know these things over here are slightly different. And in fact, everything, the whole track here is different. It's the same along the top. That looks to be the same in the middle, but these tracks are different. Their effects for various, you know, faction powers. Here's on the back the summary of the factions, highlighting their complexity. Playstyle summary. So if you want to start off with sort of a lighter complexity, you can go with House Astoran. They are military oriented with strong defenses. They prefer to build installations. They need to ensure a steady stream of food, energy, and materials. Origin card, suggested strategies, and starting techs, deep space missiles, and sentries. You get 2 special focus cards, Prosperity and Conquest. And your house abilities, you gain 2 fleet power at the end of each cycle, but your upkeep is 2 higher. 2 fleet power. I think this might be it. You gain 2 fleet power, but your upkeep is 2 higher, possibly. Okay, let's look at another one, another lighter one. House Yarvek. They are flexible and mobile, specialised in fleet deployment and surprise attacks. They collect and use bounty and reclaim tokens to achieve mobility and self-sustaining expansion. There's a bit of a background to them here. Starting tech, hyperdrive, tactical transports. They have raid and conquest. And they may discard bounty tokens to gain 1 science or 1 credit. So I'm excited about the variable faction powers. That really kind of grabs me. That's what I love about 4X games, is the excitement of picking your faction. These are huge. This is a huge pack of hefty cardboard. How am I going to safely crack into this? With my thumb. There we go. All right, let's open this up and have a look. So these are, some of these are punch boards. I think I can already hear things dropping out the bottom. I don't know what that is. Could be the agenda track, could be something else. It's really thick, solid, rounded cardboard. Here we have the punch boards for various ships, and these look great. As I said, this was half the price of the version with miniatures. It's double layered. What I was actually thinking about doing was just putting a little bit of maybe a cube underneath, just to raise it off the board a little bit as we're playing, to give the ships a bit of elevation and sort of visual kind of popping off the board a little bit. So you can pop them back in. They're so rugged and sturdy. 2 sheets of those. I can hear things popping out the bottom. Yeah, things are popping out the bottom. These are, what are they? They're sanctuaries, I think they're called, with spaces for cubes that can pop off. Don't know what they do, but they look really cool. Component quality is amazing. These are really thick boards. Here are all the dials. They look so cool, very clear. This is where they go. So the dials go into here to track resources. Many various tokens. They pop out really easy. You can see they're just falling out. That's how nicely they have been sort of cut in production. More dials. All right, so we're going to get one of these per players. 1, 2, 3. Yes, we have 4 of these in 4 different colours. I'll try and carefully move them along. Then we get to the actual what are they called? Not planetary tiles, but the hexes for exploration and so forth. I don't know what the different features mean on these yet, but let's try and just skim through these. Oh, they're all different on the back as well. Things are popping out everywhere. I'll just slide them into there. These are the sort of barriers that you can artificially create between hexes. So the fronts all look mostly the same, but the backs are really quite different. So I'm wondering if that's the exploration side, and that's once you discover it. I'm wondering, just hypothesizing out loud. More planets with interesting reverse features, and 2 more here. Yep, you just pop out there. That's how easy they've come out. Very nice looking. These things are just falling out. They are thick, but they are just so well cut that they just slide out. Okay, then we have these things. We have a plastic cover going onto the bottom area of the box. These are for the dials. We have the corruption things. Yep, don't know how these work, but they look really cool. Plastic molded holders, something to do with corruption. We have many decks of cards. All right, what do we got here? No idea, but it looks very cool. Lots of iconography. Glorious Ascension. What do we got here? Production. They might be the action cards that you select from. And then there are 5 smaller decks of cards. Price of Greatness, High Society. After you do that, choose to also spend 1 of a resource. Okay. More cards. These are your technology upgrades. Shields, combat. If you have 1 of that type of ship present, gain 1, I'm guessing defense, maybe? Okay. What is this? This is house-specific technologies. Escape pods and shields. And what do we have here? House Valnus. Escape pods. So maybe these are... Well, that looks like technology, and that looks like technology. So maybe they're related somehow. This seems to show starting resources, perhaps. These look like the resource markers. Maybe it's could there be scenario-specific resources? I don't know. But all I can say is that the art looks very nice on these cards. I don't know what the symbols mean quite just yet, but I love the colour. The symbols are clear, they pop out. Once I know what they mean, I'm sure it'll be very functional. And then we have clear plastic bases. I can't recall seeing them. We have colourful cubes. We have various dice to, I think, track population. And we have the other half of those dial trackers. So, lots to look through, lots to work through, lots to punch out, lots to read and understand. If we can go back now to, everything's popping out. If I can go now to the rule book, I'll go back to that component page to try and just, there are the ships, that's that board. They are the houses, that's that board, the compendium, the glossary, and I wanted the rulebook. So let's go back here. We had the safe haven tiles, joint focus, heroic focus cards. Okay, this was the crisis board with crisis cards. We had situation levels, alert cards. So they may have been somewhere in those decks. These are galactic events. Yeah, I was right. These are technology cards. And we have house focus cards. So because there are so many different types of cards, I think many of them were kind of compiled together within those packs. Because there are agenda cards, wealth, support, might, origin cards we saw. Maybe starting resources. There's fallen house. Okay, looks very interesting. And that's it. So yeah, we all those decks were sort of combined together. We have the galactic board, so that's what that was there. Then the resource boards, 4 resource boards, 1 per player, with a body and dials. The population die that I mentioned. Combat tiles. I saw some of these. There's a main combat tile, and then you add a destroyer combat tile, carrier combat tile based on what you bring into combat. We have decks of standard focus cards. Okay, so these are color coded. Very interesting. So you'll take your house mat, your influence boards and so forth. Sector tiles are summarized up there. Look, there's so much depth to this. It is a big, deep, heavy game. 45 minutes per player. So for 4 players, you're looking at probably 3+ hours, which is it's nice. It's half the time of a game of Twilight Imperium, a bit longer than a game of Eclipse, roughly the same as a game of Space Empires 4X. But the key, I think the defining feature of this, what distinguishes this apart from those other 4X games, is the Eurogaming focus, the engine building focus. Yes, there is combat, yes, there is exploration, but it is, from what I understand, it is minimal luck. It's all about how well you plan. And I love that idea of having a 4X with, just moving away from the very random luck-dependent aspects. I remember playing Eclipse, and the lands you explore are critical. If you find some great discoveries, you're set up well. I forgot to put the plastic back on top. I'll do that later. You're set up well for the rest of the game, or you could be screwed. So, folks, that is Voidfall by Nigel Buckle and David Tursi, with art by Ian O'Toole, published by Mindclash Games. Check it out if it's of interest. This was a Kickstarter version, just arrived, so it should be at retail soon, if not already. Thanks everyone for watching, and take care.